Dance battle events are one of two competitive dance events that you'll see at conventions. These events go by many names: Anthocron Floor Wars, FurPoc Freestyle, Annie's Dragons Dojo, FWA Battle Zoo, TFF Animal Arena, and many others. The core idea of these events is that dancers face each other in freestyle dance battles with songs that they do not really control, and judges vote who the winner is. Single elimination tournaments are the most common format for dance battle events. As the name implies, the loser of the battle is knocked out of the tournament while the winner progresses further. It may seem like a simple idea, but there's a lot of interesting things about single elimination tournaments. Single elimination tournaments are usually represented as a bracket to show the matchups between dancers. Here's an example of what a 16-person bracket looks like. Each level of the bracket is called a round, and some of these rounds have special names. This is an example of an even bracket, which means there's a power of 2 number of dancers competing. A bracket of 16 is the most common, while there are examples of 8 and 32 dancer brackets. Even brackets are great because all dancers have an equal shot at becoming champion, but obviously it's not very flexible, requiring a specific number of competitors. One very important concept with brackets is rest time for the dancers. Rest time is the amount of time dancers get in between rounds. Dance battle events are mostly limited to only having one battle occur at a time, and usually the order of battles is determined by going top to bottom on the bracket. Dancers that are placed at the top of the bracket have a slight advantage over dancers towards the bottom based on the fact that they get more rest time. There are ways to minimize this advantage by using intermissions in between rounds. Few events have intermissions between quarterfinals and semifinals, and it's pretty much standard to have an intermission between semifinals and finals. There's also the idea of having a battle for third place, which adds more time between semis and finals. Which reminds me, single elimination tournaments are only reliable with determining first place winner and nothing more. It is very common for the loser of the final battle to be awarded second place, but technically this isn't true. Let's say I have a 4-person bracket, dancer A wins against B, and dancer C wins against D in the semifinals, and A wins against C in the finals. We know that A is better than B, and also A is better than C, which is better than D. But we don't directly know if B or C is better, so is it really true to say that C should get second place? This is why the loser of the finals in a single elimination tournament is sometimes called the runner-up. Okay, I did just say some events have a battle for third place. In this example, B and D would battle. If D wins the battle, then the problem is fixed. We know exactly who's in first, second, and third. But if B wins, we still have this issue where we don't directly know if B or C deserves second place. Turns out we need one more battle to fully determine the placements, and that's what double elimination tournaments do. Personally, I think we shouldn't be overly pedantic. I like featuring battle for thirds in my tournaments because they're just fun. Okay, now we get to talk about the most important aspect to a bracket: how to fill it out in a fair manner. Randomized brackets are where dancers are randomly placed in the first round spots in the bracket. They're a really easy and fair way to fill out a small bracket without the need for having rigorous tryouts. The big drawback to randomized brackets is single elimination tournaments are highly susceptible to them. There's always a chance of having 2 highly skilled dancers face off in the first round where one of them is forced out of the tournament earlier than expected, and this overall doesn't make for a great show. But randomized brackets work best for small, unofficial pop-up events with first-come, first-served signups, and cypher events that end with a small bracket. Randomized brackets should not be used to determine a bracket of 16 for a main event at a con. At least, if you have the time and the resources to have tryouts for your event, you should not be using a randomized bracket. Battle events that have tryouts also have the ability to use seeded brackets. Seeded brackets try to avoid this luck of the draw issue by ranking dancers based on tryout scores and structuring the bracket so that the high seeds are facing the low seeds. In a 16 dancer bracket, the first round matchups have the 1 seed against the 16 seed, the 2 seed against the 15, and so on until the 8 and 9 seeds are facing each other. This bracket is set up in a way where the top 4 dancers won't face each other until the semifinal round, though we do have to consider rest time as well with the order of battles. While single dancers' tryout scores will determine their seed, their combined scores will determine where they're placed in the bracket. Combining the scores of the 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 16 seeds, and comparing it to the combined scores of the other seeds, will determine which group gets the advantage of the top half of the bracket. Comparing the combined scores of the 1, 8, 9, and 16 to the combined scores of the 4, 5, 12, and 13 determine which of these groups gets the upper quarter of their end of the bracket. Comparing the combined scores of the 2, 7, 10, and 15 to the combined scores of the 3, 6, 10, and 14 determine which group gets the other upper quarter of their side of the bracket. And this process of combining scores and comparing is done once more to get the exact order of the battles. Okay, that may seem like a confusing explanation at first, but it's done this way to make sure that the bracket matchups are still based on the dancer's seeds while changing the battle order according to the tryout scores. Seeded brackets are great because it rewards the dancers that do really well in tryouts, both in matchups and in rest time. Okay, I want to mention two types of tournament structures that don't involve brackets at all: completely randomized tournaments and reseeded tournaments. These are like the extreme examples of randomized brackets and seeded brackets, and they should be avoided in dance battle events. Completely randomized tournaments are where the matchups of every round is randomly determined, and reseeded tournaments are where every round has the remaining high seeds versus the remaining low seeds. Both of these have the issue of inconsistent amount of rest time, which is something we want to avoid, especially considering that a lot of our dancers are going to be in costumes that don't have the best ventilation. Both of them also don't really produce interesting matchups. Reseeded tournaments reward the high seeds too much, while completely randomized tournaments are, well, too random. Let's just stick to brackets that have actual structure to them. One last thing about single elimination tournaments: using uneven brackets. Uneven brackets are a way to accommodate any number of dancers that want to compete. The easiest way is by introducing a play-in round at the beginning of the tournament. Some dancers will battle in the play-in round while others get a bye. Uneven brackets are flexible with the number of dancers competing, but obviously not all the dancers have an equal shot at becoming champion. This may seem a little unfair, but it depends on if you're using a randomized bracket or a seeded bracket. Randomized brackets would have all the play-in battles at the bottom of the bracket, so that the winners of these battles get as much rest time as possible. They will also be facing other dancers that had to go through the play-in round and not fresh dancers that were lucky enough to get the bye. Seeded brackets, on the other hand, award byes to the highest seeds, and dancers in the play-in round are matched with other dancers of similar seed. At least that's the case when there's equal or more byes than there are play-in battles. Here's an example of a 12-dancer bracket where the top 4 seeds get byes and there's 4 play-in battles. Notice how the play-in battles all involve seeds that are right next to each other, though the bracket does get a little bit more complicated when there's more play-in battles than there are byes. But I'm not going to really show it here because no one uses uneven seeded brackets like that. Anyway, that's all I have to say about single elimination tournaments. They are the bread and butter of the dance battle scene. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.